Okay, here we are.
All right.
Yeah.
Well. Fancy seeing
So
you here.
so we meet again. Um, yeah. If you don't know, then you should know. This is the after party to the indie review show. We've already got a few people here. Hi, people.
Yeah.
Um, the indie review show is a show where we cover comic books and cartoons and movies and stuff that we like that have inspired us. And we made maybe a bad decision. I don't think it is in the long run, but these after parties seem to be more well attended than the show. So,
Yes.
I don't know. But if you want to see the show, you could go to irsagency.com. I'm mainly saying that for the people that are watching this afterwards that are wondering what we're talking about, since my channel's got a few subscribers. So
I love
Kayla's back with us. How's it going, Kayla?
How you doing, Kayla?
I'll see.
I need to catch up on her 48-hour art checks. I am like very behind on them.
She was recently married, so congratulations.
Awesome.
Actually, I haven't talked to her since then. I'm kind of curious on how that's going. But yeah, she got married a week ago, I think.
Oh yeah!
Like
Congrats! Yeah. That's awesome. It's a good step. That's kind of
fun. Yeah. So yeah, but her and Emily and Petals, the three of them are doing really interesting stuff. So I like seeing their stuff. So
that's cool. Very
April
cool.
9th. So she's working on an 18-day project. So that's cool.
Badass.
I like that.
I like when artists make stuff. It's very cool.
Me too. I'm going to mute myself every time I drink because I have this giant jar full of ice and I feel like it's super loud. We got Gary with us too.
Yeah, I was joking with Corey that whenever we do these streams, when he sits down, I don't know what setup he has in his art studio, but it will kind of sound every time like something broke. So you'll just hear this like cartoonish like level of like shattering and breaking, and then just he'll kind of stumble his way into it. You're like, what happened off screen there?
Yeah, my studio is not very big, and it's yeah.
Well, it's okay. I mean, my studio can start to look like The Ring if I just move back. It's like there's my wife working on art back there, but it's like right. In the camera, it kind of looks like a haunted silhouette with like a glowing screen. You expect like poltergeists to start moving stuff around our house.
I still maintain that we need to get my mic'd so that we can hear her commentary, because
yes,
what I gather, it's hilarious.
Oh, mine is hilarious.
Really hear it. I just hear the aftermath of it.
I agree. I think we need to get her mic'd so that she can comment and just poke fun at us. I think that would actually be good.
So yeah. So if you can hear me, you are welcome anytime on the after party.
She cannot hear you
as a guest on the
she just did a ring thing with like her in front. Oh my goodness. I'm being attacked. Oh no.
Okay, I'll tell you.
But so Corey is telling, because I am wearing headphones, but Corey was just saying you're always welcome if you ever want to join us on our thing.
I'll tell you a funny story about The Ring. So The Ring came out and was popular when I was in college. And I had such a weird college experience. I think maybe this is normal. I don't know. For me, it was normal. We were just wandering around campus, right? Just wandering around. And then it started raining. And so I think we're on like a double or triple date. There was just like a group date thing. And on our way home, we found this refrigerator box that had been left out in the rain. And so, we're like, we have to do something with this. And so because I don't know, you're 20 and how can you leave a refrigerator box untouched? So anyway, we kind of started carrying this wet cardboard home And we were like, what are we going to do with this? Then I saw in this girl's apartment complex, because like all the windows like face the street, somebody was watching something, and I could tell that it was like a bluish green tint. So I assumed it was The Ring, right? And so we like their couch was against the front, and so you could see the TV, but they couldn't see you seeing the TV. And so we kind of like snuck up there and we folded this wet cardboard box as much as we could, and then waited for the girl to come out of the TV. And when the girl came out of the TV, we opened the door and threw the wet box inside of the apartment, and it kind of like expanded back into shape, which sprayed water on all of them. This girl's coming out of the TV, and it's all wet and everything, and they lost it. Like they were like, it was the best.
So Corey, you were that guy. I've been waiting every day since college. No, yeah, that sounds pretty typical. I don't know. That sounds like typical college hijinks, especially undergrad. Like early graduate hijinks are like, I was crazy today and I slept for 3 hours. Yeah, I'm living it wild by sleeping.
Yeah. James Jarvis is saying, call back to last week's episode.
Yes.
That Alex Ross used the same model for Superman and Batman.
That would explain it, because he does use life models.
Yeah.
And then Gary was saying, not shocked. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Cool. I was telling Corey that I've changed my mind about Falcon and Winter Soldier. Well, I will not make any pretense that it's any bit incredible. It's a corny like superhero thing. But I will say
I got so bored. I love superhero stuff, but I haven't watched the last 2 or maybe even 3 episodes because I was just like, nothing is going on. This is so boring.
And I gotta say, like, it's not gonna reach the heights of like kind of meta and an interesting story as I think WandaVision did, but it definitely is like similar to WandaVision in the sense of there's a point where like this character Zemu comes in and it gets super fascinating and interesting, and then the story arc starts introducing like the American Patriot. I think that's his character name, and so it gets really interesting. The last 2 were really fascinating, and I think it was like 2 ago where I was like, oh, okay, I actually am glad I for some reason decided to give this another shot.
Okay.
So I gotta say, yeah, and Gary's saying the same thing. It gets better and better, and it's interesting because you start to understand like what they're building towards, and it's like, oh, okay, this is gonna get good. So I kind of like that. I also am starting to like the characters a little bit more, although to this day I still hate the Winter Soldier as a character. I just feel like
why
he's one of the weakest characters in the whole Captain America series. And I love Captain America. I just feel like his character is really underdeveloped, and like it's like a pseudo the Crow without the coolness.
Yeah.
But even he's starting to rub off of me in the sense of I think the directors of the show are doing a decent job working with the actors, because I'm like, oh, okay, the guy's actually got some chops. Like that was the main reason I wasn't really drawn to it. I felt like the actor was really flat, but it seems like in this show, I'm like, okay, they're getting interesting performances, and I don't know. I like where it's going. So
okay,
I will say, yeah, I wouldn't say it's like the best thing. It's definitely not as interesting as Invincible, but it's getting there,
Okay, so far I'll say this about Marvel taking Marvel TV away from Netflix. Netflix was able to do a good first 3 episodes, and Marvel sucks at it. Like it's like, or Disney Plus or whatever. I don't know who's running the show, but like the first 2 episodes of WandaVision were horrifically boring. And I think so stupid.
I think part of the issue is I think when Marvel, aka Disney, like kind of took on doing the televised versions of Marvel, I think they were looking to the first few episodes of Iron Fist and being like, this is the secret formula. Like, that's what I think. But
From Netflix, Iron Fist?
yeah.
But why would they do that and not do
I'm
Cage
joking.
or
That's the joke.
Daredevil? I know, it's like, why do you
that's
think
kind of where I'm
they're-
heading with it. Yeah, I think they probably took influence for like the one that like no one was into. They're like, Daredevil, like even the Punisher, like all of these like Luke Cage, which was
Jessica
awesome.
Jones, like they were interesting. Yeah, interesting from the start.
They're like,
But, like,
people really like this. Let's pull open this one.
let's not watch all of them, but what's the most recent one? The one that got everything canceled because everybody got really bored? Oh, The Defenders? Yeah, sure, let's do that.
But yeah, it's interesting. You're right. They do have these slow burn beginnings. I feel like WandaVision's was a little more forgivable, but even this one, I'm starting.
They took 2 episodes.
Yeah, but
They're
it
like, let's do
really pays off.
Like an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, but it really pays off where it's like there's little things that are in throughout that come back and they tie the threads, and it's like, okay, I see what you guys were doing.
Okay,
it took forever, but
there's 15 minutes of campy nothingness,
and
then a tiny hint of something, and then another 15 minutes of nothing, and then a tiny hint of like, give me 2 minutes and then a hint, and then 5 minutes and then a hint. Like you could have done. Here's what I feel like: Winter Soldier and Falcon and Winter Soldier, or whatever that show is called, and WandaVision. WandaVision got better, but I feel like both of them are like a good 2-hour movie stretched out into 8 hours.
Yeah, I disagree. But
I
will say Falcon and Winter Soldier definitely more on the side of agreeing, but I will say like check out the rest.
Okay, Gary is saying exactly what I'm saying, but better. It feels like they get concepts for 4-episode series, and then somebody says, "Why not make it 7?" You know?
Yeah, I can definitely see that. But I am excited if they start bringing in some Doctor Strange universe stuff, because then they can go meandery. Like the thing that's great about Strange in that universe is like you can get really meta and like rambly and weird with that one because it's Doctor Strange. And so I actually think if they start kind of going that realm, it's going to get really fun, because you could have like a weird side issue episode, but that has to do with like perceptions of reality and time warping and like universe bending and multi-planets and stuff. I mean, that's where it gets like, I don't know, like the rambling can be fun, but yeah. You're right. Although then again, they are being really true to the material they're adapting.
Or they'll just, cast an actor from a Sony movie and then pretend like it wasn't a really cool callback to an alternate dimension version of that character and just say, this is Billy. He's just a guy that this witch took over.
That is true.
Because they had a really good opportunity and they knew that they were doing that. And I'm like, why not do that? This is supposed to go into the multiverse of madness, right? We're supposed to be going into that. And no, just okay.
They might have also just made that choice just to create the buzz online. Like, I wonder if they are going to do it. They're going to bring in the X-Men. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kayla says, as a huge MCU fan, and I can attest she is a huge MCU fan, I think half of the hats she owns are some sort of MCU call. I do lean towards agreeing with Corey, at least Falcon and Winter Soldier and WandaVision took so long to get cool. I agree. Gary's saying, I wanted more of that from the end of WandaVision. I wanted the witches to be witchier and not look like every other pleathered superhero in the MCU.
100%. But, I will say they also do suffer from the fact that they're being pretty true to the source material. And I will hold to that. I will say, like, one of the things as a kid even that used to annoy me was like I would be following and I didn't follow like the most popular Marvel things. Like my Spider-Man run was that I collected was like Web of Spider-Man, which is easily one of the least well written of the 50 versions of Spider-Man, But the thing that was annoying was like I followed one series and then you would get these plot arcs where it would be like you'd have like a little asterisk because it was impossible to follow, and you're like, what the hell happened? This is literally one issue after the last issue I read, and we're in like a different place. There's like different villains coming out of nowhere, and then you get this little asterisk, and it's like, oh, you have to follow these 50 other comics to know what's going on in your one comic that you're collecting. And it was infuriating because it's like, why do you have to buy like 20 comics? Couldn't you just tell like a decent story like within one universe? And I will say there's a bit of that too with the MCU, although I enjoy it because I grew up reading that stuff. So of course I kind of enjoy it, but there's also a part of me that's like, yeah, that's kind of why I stopped doing that.
Yeah. A buddy of mine at work made this argument once, and he was like defending, I think it was Batman versus Superman or something. It's like,
oh no, please don't defend those.
And like, and
don't defend Snyder.
He was talking about like, James Jarvis is saying, sorry, this is a good point. James Jarvis is saying the Netflix Marvel shows had a similar stretching problem, but it was usually in the middle of the series. And I would agree with that too. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's a little bit more forgivable because at least you're hooked. Like even some of my favorite shows like Battlestar Galactica and stuff, they have an episode about like the black market that you're like, well, that was a pointless.
Well, Battlestar Galactica is a perfect example of what you're talking about because it's such an on-point beginning that you're willing to deal with so many story issues later on because it's like it's still a series I recommend to people, even though like it. I mean. Yeah, I still to this day cannot make heads or tails as to why it ended the way it did, but it's like, I don't know, it was still really great. The characters were so well built. Although I think that you can pull that off when you have really compelling characters.
Yeah.
You know, if your characters are flat and you have that, it's like, yeah, it's like you don't have a reason.
Also, having James Olmos in it, that helps quite a bit.
Oh, 100. That's 100% why that was a good series.
Where was I going though? What was I saying before I distracted myself?
You were saying something to the extent of Batman versus Superman that was going to talk. It sounds like almost defensively of it, which is frightening the hell out of me. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, he was saying
all the Snyder Cut people in your chats or on your channel are going to be like, "I hate this Josh guy." Snyder is untouchable.
So I haven't seen the Snyder Cut.
I haven't either.
I'm not. I don't know. It might be good, but also like, I don't know.
Well, this is where I'm going to be like a Marvel snob and just say like, there's a reason I didn't like DC Comics as much as a kid.
Right. Okay. So without getting into the whole Marvel and DC thing, I didn't really grow up with DC at all. Right. I mean, I'm aware. I'm about as aware as most comic book nerds of like the characters, but like I never read any of the things. I mean, I think the only DC thing that I read as a teenager was when Spawn and Batman had a crossover.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was Image's version of that crossover was cool. DC's version of that crossover was the dumbest thing I've ever read.
But I still do remember because didn't they get Frank Miller on that?
I think so. I can't remember.
I still remember the cover. I don't know which version it was, but it was like them both jumping in the rain. And at that time, that was like when I was full bore into Spawn. So I was so excited. I would buy anything that had Spawn in it at the time. Yeah. But it is interesting because it must not have been that great because I don't have like any memory of the actual plot. I think it was just like, yeah.
I've got it somewhere.
It's in my garage.
I'll get up and show this panel, but spoiler alert for anybody who doesn't want a comic in the mid 90s spoiled. So the Image version, they fight some power. It's the same story, except at the end in Image, Batman is the biggest jerk and he just won't come around and like Spawn. And Spawn's like, come on, like I'm trying here. And he's like, I hate your guts. And at the end of the Image version of the crossover, Batman like as he's walking away, Spawn says something, and Batman buries like a 12-inch batarang in his face. And so like he just has this batarang in his face. And
I do remember that because he ended up getting stitches, like, and they actually had the character for like preceding issues have like these white stitches across his face.
Not white stitches. He stitched himself up with a pair of shoelaces.
That's right.
Which is so bad, right? Totally Spawn, like the homeless king. And he stitches himself up with shoelaces. That was cool. Okay, that was well done. On the DC side of things, do you know how they beat the superhero? Or they beat the bad guy?
Friendship.
Yes, basically. They beat the bad guy.
They didn't actually go there. I was
beat
joking.
The bad guy by killing the lights to the city and then turning on the lights on certain buildings so that from the sky, the city lit up in a smiley face. And somehow that defeated the evil. And that was the end of the comic.
Brilliant
it was
writing.
Awful. Like, I think that's
how they defeated the bad guy. They got stereos and they just put like "We Are the World" on stereo, and they drove around the city. Everybody held hands.
Time was satiated. I gotta find this. I know it's around here somewhere.
I have both in my long box, but once again, I have some garage cleaning to do in the next few. I don't know why I said once again. It's not like I mentioned that before, but I have a garage that really very badly needs to be organized and cleaned.
Where are those?
So I do like Power of Friendship storylines, but not so much.
Through like My Little Pony.
Yeah, or like a well-crafted story, like Guardians of the Galaxy totally did the Power of Friendship nonsense, but they did it well.
Right.
It's like there's a way to do it. You know what's the best Power of Friendship moment? That's it at its most powerful is in Toy Story 3 when the toys are all on a conveyor belt about to go to their death, but they hold hands because friendship is important. Facing their existential doom. And if you are a person with a heart and you saw that part and didn't choke up and like get all moved by the power of friendship, there's something wrong with your soul.
Yeah, you really don't have a heart. I might not have the DC version of that. Now I want it. It's like one of the worst things I've ever read.
Gary said, wasn't that basically the end of Ghostbusters 2? And from what I recall, and my wife was like, that's another one you needed to cry at the end of. Or there's something wrong with you. But I mean, also, we have to remember Ghostbusters 2 is comedic, so that kind of works.
Yeah, I mean, the point of Ghostbuster 2 is not to have like a compelling story. It's that. Yeah, it is Frank Miller and Todd McFarlane.
Yeah, because I remember that was like a huge deal because that Frank Miller at the time was like running off the wings of Sin City. And so I was like, oh, this is going to be the ultimate team up, Which, by the way, I have like a Sin City, A Dame to Kill For, like signed by Frank Miller in that same box.
There's the last panel of Spawn getting a batarang buried in his face. Yeah,
I vividly remember that. And it's funny because I think that around that time, that's a little bit after he started having, I'm going to butcher his name, but Capullo or whatever. Like,
yeah, Greg Capullo.
That's about around the time he started having him on the run. Because McFarlane actually held to that for quite a while, quite a few issues.
Yeah. Let's see. What was I doing here?
And speaking of, it's funny. It all comes. Here's something to connect it with our last IRS. So I mentioned Neil Gaiman on there, and there's one of a few people Neil Gaiman has sued, and one of them is Todd McFarlane, and he won. So that was pretty interesting.
Yep.
Don't screw a writer out of their intellectual rights, guys. Because I think from that he ended up with like a percentage of the profits from any book that had his character, like a pretty decent chunk too.
Okay, here's just content warning for anybody that wants one.
Gary was saying, why not sue Todd McFarlane? Yeah, that's a good point. But I think it was the fact that he was passing off the Angela character as if he didn't owe Neil Gaiman, who wrote that entire plot line
Yeah.
with the angels, which is a really brilliant twist when he guest wrote an issue of Spawn and clarified with Todd McFarlane, like, hey, if I come up with characters for this, like, I want to own the rights to them. And he was like, no, you're brilliant. What you do for Sandman is just excellent. Yeah, just guest write my book. And like, he's like, okay. And then like 5 issues later, he's like, I'm pulling back your character. I'm not going to get permission. I'm not going to give you a cut of the sales. I'm going to make a toy of the character that sells out in like a week and then not give you any notice or anything. And then I'm actually going to claim that I made the character. And that's where like Gaiman was like, well, I'm going to send you this little lawyer letter and then take you to court. And now you owe me millions of dollars. Boom. That's how you do it. By the way, I might have misremembered that because this was all drama from when I was a young kid reading comics and reading Wizard magazine.
No, so then I feel like Neil Gaiman did this. I don't know why. I don't want to speculate, but this was a kind of an interesting move. Okay, so Todd McFarlane specifically went out of his way to leave Marvel because he hated it there and he didn't like how artists were treated. Then he turns around and like tries to screw over Neil Gaiman for the same.
He pretty much pulled a Stan Lee.
Right. And so then Neil Gaiman wins in court. And do you know what he did next with that character? He gave it to Marvel so that they could use him in their books.
Did he really?
Yeah. Well, not gave it to them.
I'm sorry. That's hilarious.
Not gave it to them, but basically said, you know, you can use this character. And she started showing up in Marvel books.
Was it to Marvel or DC? Because Gaiman usually works with DC, but I don't know.
What's the character's name again? Angelica or something?
Angela, yeah.
Angela. Angela.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Marvel, but I'd be interested.
Yeah, Angela. Yeah, Angela is a fictional superhero created by author Neil Gaiman and artist Todd McFarlane. She first appeared as a supporting antagonist in Spawn in issue 9 in 1993.
Yep.
And now she is a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
So it was. Okay, cool. That's awesome.
Yep.
I love it.
Which I just think, and people are asking if Angela is... Okay, Angela is revealed to be alive and has been pulled from heaven as a result of Wolverine's damage to the Omniverse. And she is Thor and Loki's sister now because of that damage.
That's interesting.
So Angela and Hela are sisters.
I find that fascinating. That's very cool.
I just feel like I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but to me that seems like
that's a middle finger move.
Yeah, the biggest like, you know what? You know how you don't like how this worked out? And guess what? The character that you tried to take from me, now Marvel has it.
Oh, dude, Gary was saying one of his best friends used to do their letters column for Wizard. Dude, you need to get your friend to talk to us so we can have him on Artcasters, because I would love to interview somebody who worked for Wizard magazine. I was like, that and previews, sadly, was like one of my favorite ways to find out about new stuff, you know. I only say sadly previews because like when you're a kid, you don't really know like this is like the one monopolistic thing that's kind of destroying a lot of indies. And which is interesting because there's this whole move that I read about recently where I think, is it DC or Marvel that's dropping previews?
I don't know.
It's like this huge thing. I think it's, let me look it up. I want to look up who's doing that. I think it's Marvel. Not previews, but previews is Diamond. So they're dropping Diamond.
Oh, DC dropped Diamond a little while ago. DC dropped Diamond at the beginning of the pandemic because Diamond was like, we can't do anything. And they stopped distributing, which almost killed Marvel and DC. So DC immediately turned around and signed with like 2 or 3 other distributors. And Marvel just stopped publishing books for months.
Yeah, see, now I'm kind of curious about this distro. Yeah, Marvel, March 25th. So this is pretty recent. Dropped Diamond and is going to go through Penguin Random House.
Wow.
That is
crazy.
the beginnings of a death rattle of a distributor who, you know, like they've been. I've had stuff through Diamond when I was younger, and it was nice, but the stranglehold they have over the comics stores is tough. The thing that's going to be tough to see is how this affects business models for comic book stores, because one of the advantages, the thing that Diamond did that was like so different than most distributors, was they cut the return policy on books, which actually helped a lot of floppy comics move, because like what was happening prior to that was like people would take like the previous books, like when it was mainly a newsstand game, people would take the books that hadn't sold, they'd rip off the covers, they'd sell the interiors, and then they'd return the covers to the publisher saying it was like damaged or didn't move, and they get like a double profit from it. And it's like a huge problem with like small books. And so Diamond, like, to kind of cut that out, because like the industry was having like this mass loss, and it was hard for them to sell books when they were constantly getting them returned, because like, once again, like a floppy doesn't have a long shelf life. Like, it's not like a graphic novel, you know? So it's like by the time that book gets back, it's not like you're going to be able to resell it, you know?
Yeah.
And so they made this policy where you couldn't return books. Like, it's basically you buy it, you buy it. That's it. You buy it and you get what you get. And so this entire business model has developed around the way comic shops run as well, where they're very reliant on certain pricing and certain distribution models that Diamond can offer, mainly because of that no return policy. So it's going to be interesting if they switch to like a Penguin Random House kind of thing, where I think, unless they're doing a special deal with these companies, like, I think they're going to have like a return policy like most distributors. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I personally, it's like I don't shed a lot of tears over Diamond. Like, maybe I have a misunderstanding of what they've done for the industry, but it's like I feel like they've closed out so much and kind of created a monopoly on the whole distribution system.
No, they went out of their way to destroy competition too. Like, they were not the good guys. And
I mean, you can read a little bit about it from like people like Last Gasp, who, you know, like have really weathered quite a lot of anyhow.
Yeah.
I love it. Sorry, I didn't mean to ramble about distribution, but this is a hangout.
Hey, this is the after party. We can talk about whatever we want.
That's right. We can.
Also, I have an 8 o'clock class in the morning, semester starts, so I do have to go to bed soon.
Oh, yeah. Well, me too.
And check this out. Not that anybody cares, but I was able to figure out the equation that makes the inside of that lens rotate opposite of the thing that's rotating it and stick with the lens itself. So you'll notice that the red stays on the top, even though it moves with the lens.
That is pretty insane, actually.
That's exciting. I wasn't sure if that would work. Now I'm going to duplicate it. And
now, how do you figure out an equation like that? Do you actually do math, or is it a matter of just kind of messing with numbers and seeing what moves which way?
Well, I mean, in this case, I guessed that it would be an exact 1-to-1 inverse relationship. So if it rotated 45 degrees, then to counterbalance that, it would need to rotate negative 45 degrees. And so I just took that, put it in a variable, and then multiply the variable by -1.
Interesting. I wouldn't know how to do that.
So I'll show you.
I mean, I guess multiplying by a -1 would just be the variable just as a negative, right?
Right.
Okay. So then I guess I do follow that. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, if I have A plus B equals C and A equals 2 and B equals 3, then everybody knows that C is 5, right? But then if I change A to be 4 and B to be 6, right? Then you can solve for C. That's all I'm doing. And so in these equations, I have like, I'll change colors. I'll have like the rotation of one thing, and it changes over time on the timeline. And then what I do is the blue one will go grab the red one, and I put the red one inside of that. Sorry, like that.
Nice. And then Ox is kind of expressing my sentiments right here because math, I like my brain is just wired where I instantly tune out. And Ox just said, whatever it is, east of west is amazing. So that's how I feel. But that is amazing. Like I really hate math. I shouldn't, but like, is that terrible that like the second I see math, I'm like, yeah, man, I can't. I have so much trouble paying attention.
I like this type of math. I don't like real math. I like conceptual math. It's the same reason why I got bad grades in like economics classes. I enjoy economic theory. I hate economic math. I don't want to do the equations. I like chemistry, but I don't want to figure out like the equation of the energy of the covalent bonds breaking. I just want to know what a covalent bond is.
Yeah, you got back up there where Kayla was saying this is fun math, which I'm like, yeah. Is there such a thing? Like fun math to me is like I have more money in my bank account. That's fun math.
Dude, I want to know, was Ox with us in the show and just silent the entire time, or did I miss comments?
I think he might have missed the show. I'm curious, but he'll have to kind of talk about that.
Okay, this is true. That tracks so well. Corey appreciates the difficult way of doing things.
100% though. Like there are things that Corey is capable of doing that I just wouldn't have the patience to do. Or I would do in a way that didn't require the equation and it would take like 10 times longer. You know?
Okay, here's the best part. This is the best part. I didn't even have to do the math for the second layer. I just copied it and it still works.
See, so that's great. Yeah. So we're like, I can understand that. I just can't do it.
Let's see if the third one does it too. Yeah, they all work. I thought that was going to take me forever.
Oh my gosh. Math.
That's so cool.
I will say, like, one of the funny things about econ that it keeps kind of cracking me up because it keeps popping up here and there where like somebody will study like one of the Austrian economists or something, and suddenly they feel like there is science behind this. And I think there's a lot of people who are not that there isn't science behind economics, but I think there's like a misunderstanding some people have between like a hard and a soft science. I don't know if that makes sense. Like economics are harder to replicate to test.
Well, and let me tell you something that you won't like. One of my favorite jokes in the Big Bang Theory is all.
No! Yeah, math and the Big Bang Theory. Come on, Corey.
It's all of the physicists making fun of the soft sciences. every time, like an economist or a social scientist or a psychologist or something comes up, they relentlessly mock them because it can't be quantified. It's an ongoing joke. But
I definitely I think that tracks, but still a joke can track and still be on a bad show.
Okay, Kayla is pulling back the curtain on my teaching style here. The patience for trial and error that he has is insane. And then you learn the difficult way with them, and then he learns an easier way and shows you that later. It makes it worth it. Because I'm learning stuff still. It's not like I learned stuff 20 years ago and I've never learned anything else since. So like I'll teach all my students something, and then like a month later I'll learn like a really easy way of doing it. And I'm like, oh, you guys remember that thing that took you like 6 hours? Like I figured out a way to do it faster.
Yeah, I think that's the nature of teaching. Like I've experienced that, especially with separating black lines for color. It's like I used to have this long, convoluted way. I think it might still be up on YouTube, where it requires like going to the alpha channel and like kind of creating like assigning one layer and doing a lot of different steps that like you could do the same thing in about 3 steps now, but it's just I didn't know that at the time, and I was basing it off of a method that was developed, like in the early stages of Photoshop, where certain layer movements weren't available. So yeah, so I definitely have had to do that. Like, by the way, there's a simpler way, because if you're learning effectively or teaching effectively, you're going to be constantly modifying and finding new ways to do stuff. It's the unfortunate but cool part about teaching, I think.
Yeah. I tell my students, I'm going to have this discussion tomorrow because tomorrow's the first day of class. The first day of class is my least favorite time because I craft the first day of class to make sure that everybody takes the class seriously, which is also a little intimidating for some people, which I don't want to be intimidating. That's why I don't like it. But I tell them, like, I wish it weren't this way. Here's how I wish school was. I wish school was like no grades, and we got to get together and I could say, hey, do you guys want to like learn how to make incredible things and be really excited about it? And they say yes. And then we just do that for 3 months. And that's what the class is. And I tried that when I first started teaching, and no one does anything unless you threaten them with grades.
Yep.
And so
also, honestly, that translates to like management too. It's like if people don't have deadlines or consequences, they don't do things. Like, you would like to think that people are motivated intrinsically by the good, but it's amazing how just a little bit of fire actually will get people moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and too much is discouraging and kills everything, and too little, nobody moves.
So Corey, I imagine your intro just being like the beginning of Full Metal Jacket. Like, that's how I was kind of envisioning it. It's like a crazy, like, abusive, like, scenario where you're like the drill instructor and you're like, what are you all? You all are worth nothing. And like, they're like, I can't. And you're like, well, if you can't, just give up and destroy yourself. And you're like, whoa, like, what is this? We all get a view in it and like are like, is that the same Corey I know? I'm kidding, because I also, like, I think there is a difference between what people will kind of perceive as like really strict in at a college level, and then what would actually be legitimately strict.
Yeah. All I do, all I do is basically say, hey, like, my purpose here is to get you ready for industry, not to be your friend or tell you that the stuff you're making looks good when it doesn't. And I just
sorry, Corey, isn't that industry? I'm just kidding. Sorry. That was a knock on our former president. I apologize.
I say, like, in American Idol or any other reality TV show where there's, and then like after the most horrible thing, the producers let them through because of how bad they were, just so that they could be embarrassed on national television. They all say the same thing afterwards. They all say, oh, my friends told me I can sing. I'm not going to be that. I'm going to be the person who tells you can't sing. And then they're all like, you're going to be honest with us? And they just get really scared. But
oh yeah, first critiques are rough too when you're actually critiquing.
Yeah.
When you're critiquing people who are not used to getting an actual critique, it's yeah.
I will say the feedback from most of my students is that the class is not as bad as other students tell them it is. Like there's this thing that my students do where they tell people who haven't taken my class yet, oh man, buckle up, it's rough, he's super harsh. And then the people that take the class at the end of it, they're like, that wasn't nearly as bad as I thought. And then they turn around and tell their friends, he's hard, man. He's super. I don't know what it is. Like they tell me, they're like, oh, I was expecting this to be really hard. And then they tell their friends, like, you got to buckle up and work.
It's interesting too, because like some of that perception on a college campus that has to do with like the whole process of being in the class. So it's like, you know, I remember as a student and as a teacher seeing this, but it's like as a student participating in this, where you'd have like a teacher who's really good, but has high expectations. And for like the first half of the semester, you get out of their class and you're just like, that guy is such a jerk. Like, I just can't stand. And like, what does he know about type? And what does he know about? And you're just like, meh, 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 you know, and then you go and you work hard, like harder than you've worked in your life. And then you start leveling up and you're like, I don't know. Okay. So maybe he's not so bad. But the weird thing is you also have friends during that process who haven't taken that class yet. And they hear the whole thing. So they're like, oh man, this is a really tough teacher. They aren't judging it by like the final result and like the students who are walking out quite often. I think a lot of it's just like this buzz. Because I totally had that when I taught at LCAD. We had one class, like one assignment in one of my classes that was, I had been told by other teachers that it had become this notorious, like the hardest project you'll have on campus. And it wasn't a crazy project. It was like a game board that they had to design, conceive, like make functional, and like all the assets and components. And that during their final, we would play it and critique it. But it actually would have to be playable. Like, so it had all sorts of elements, but it was mainly a vehicle for them to learn packaging design. But yeah. It was hilarious because we had a reputation at that school, like the whole time I taught there, where people were just like, man, like when we get to that one project in the class, they'd just be like, I don't know if I'm ready. Like, it's like people like just thinking like, you know, like, I don't know if I can like bungee jump off this building. And you're like, it's really not that crazy if you just kind of follow the reasonable goals that I will set. Like, I will guide you through it. Like, it's not, but yeah, it is funny how that spreads around a campus. But I think that might be part of why is like, you know, friends of people watch the whole thing and they may not be seeing like the final thing. They might just be hearing
way
like
more sense to me than the way I was imagining it was going on.
Well, it could also be because I think the game board project thing had a hype of its own too, where people who had gone through it kind of like typing up the previous students. Like, dude, we ran the gauntlet. Like, you better be ready for that nonsense.
I have a T-shirt that I designed based on something that students started calling themselves. They started referring to themselves as 305 survivors. So the course code is like COM 305 is this class that I'm talking about. And now there is a T-shirt design because people are like, it's like a badge of honor that they like took that class. Ox is saying that he would love having be taught by me because we'd both get something out of it. And I would agree. I love that. I think that's one of the best things about teaching is I learn a ton.
Oh, dude, yeah. Like any instructor who's pretending they aren't learning from their students is lying.
Yeah,
and probably might not. Maybe they shouldn't be teaching.
They could be a terrible teacher if they're not learning something. Because I don't know. But
yeah, I've seen that. I have. I mean, you know, I'm not going to speak for Corey because Corey's school is awesome. But I will say in my brief time teaching, I did meet a few people who were teaching for their ego rather than for the students. And that's not good.
Yeah.
So, and
James is absolutely correct here. I think that, I don't know that they're doing it intentionally. I hope so. But like, I think the students realize that it's not me. Like, I'm not actually doing any. I've taught other classes that don't have the same reputation and I've tried the same things and it doesn't work. And so what I tell students now is it's like, you know, you guys can blame me all you want. That's fine. I'll be the heavy or whatever. But in reality, what you bring to the table is what's causing you to learn. I can't make you learn anything. There's nothing I can do to teach you anything. Like in reality, you show up and do the work and you're learning not because I'm anything special, but because you showed up and did the work. And so if students show up ready to be like, oh man, this is going to be, you know, whatever they think, and then they start doing really good work, or working really hard, then yeah, they're gonna do a lot better than if they're the type of student that shows up waiting to be whatever. And then Kayla's saying, I taught her not to be ashamed about needing to learn differently. I think that's because my brain is weird and I don't process things in the same way. And so like, that's one of the benefits I think of weird people. It's like if everybody in my department was the same, then who would help the people who think differently than them? Like if everybody thought like along a linear track, I'm the one who's like, hey, listen, I don't know the order of the months. Like I've got a mental block from trauma in my childhood. So I've had to figure out weird ways around stuff. And so let's figure out your weird ways around stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's good stuff, man. That's cool. It sounds like you're doing a good job, dude.
It's fun. But I do.
But yeah, those first, I don't know. I used to revel and enjoy a good critique because like at the end of the day, like some of the kids that are going to take it the hardest if they stick in it are going to level up so much. And it's like, that kind of thing is what keeps people in it. I think that are decent teachers. It's like being able to see somebody who came in maybe even more skilled than you. Like I've definitely had students like that who were like a million times better than I ever was at their age and went on to like way better careers. But it's like being able to watch and facilitate them leveling up and like pushing themselves to something they didn't know they were capable of is like, it's the coolest thing to witness because it's like, that's what they're going to get. Like there's all these students out there who have some weird notion that like a degree means something. And it's a really stupid notion because like, yeah, it's good to have, but like, if you have a bad portfolio and a degree from Harvard, no one's going to give a crap. Like they don't care where you went to school. They care about your portfolio. And then, like the school will help and like having the degree shows the capability of like being able to see something through. And so it shows you're reliable and like, it'll make you a little more trustworthy to an employer. But at the end of the day, if you have a crap portfolio, like you have a crap portfolio and like, there's no piece of paper that's going to like justify that. Plus, maybe you could go into fine art and learn how to write a really good BSSA to justify your, bad art in a gallery. I don't know. But even then, you got to be pretty brilliant at communication to pull that off, So pay attention in Corey's classes and do the work.
I like how that's what this stream has become is me just getting ready for the first day of class tomorrow.
This stream becomes whatever. It's an amorphous blob that becomes whatever it needs to be. I'm enjoying the conversation. It's keeping me company whilst doing comics, and that is my favorite thing to do during streams. Although I gotta say, I need a quick break.
Ox is saying the next indie comic you were doing, since it's Grizzly Shark. Did you guys pick the next indie comic? Have you read Grizzly Shark?
No.
Okay. If it's the one I'm thinking of, Ryan Otley, who drew Invincible and drew Spider-Man for a while after that, kind of on the side just does this really weird comic called Grizzly Shark, which is like it's
a grizzly bear shark,
half shark, half bear, and the whole thing is just people being attacked out of nowhere and like bitten in half. It's just incredibly cartoonishly violent. It's such a weird and funny comic.
Awesome.
So if you like the bits of gore in Invincible, then Grizzly Shark is 100% of that. That's just the whole thing. I have literally Oxford, you just went up like 5 notches. I've never even heard of another person that has read that comic.
That's awesome. I haven't read it. I am. Oh man, it would be fun to do some more humor stuff. I gotta Gotta get some in. There's one I really like called Night Business. It's like, I don't know. You can look it up, but it's just look up the art and you can see why I like it instantly. And it's like, it's pretty much like if somebody went to college and completely ignored any critique you gave of their artwork. Let me make sure it's called Night Business. It's excellent. Let's see.
So far, I'm really intrigued.
But did it like did you see the art?
Oh, sorry. No, I missed it.
Okay. So just Google Night Business at some point, but it literally is like, it's somebody who just doubled down on, drawing with like no care for any formalities. Like if they just were like, took all of Rob Liefeld's weaknesses and we're just like, no, I'm going to do this and I'm going to put sunglasses on it and just blast it full of like 80s cocaine aesthetics or something. It's terrible, but it's like, it's kind of amazing.
I so far think I would hate this book a lot.
I'm absolutely fascinated by that book because it's so bad.
I think this might be the difference between you liking the Dada movement and me annoyed that the Dada movement worked.
Oh, it's so good. It's so bad. It's good. It's like I guess this would be like the version of like, I don't know if you've ever had just a night where you're like, I have to watch a really bad, exploitation film from the 70s. And it's terrible. It's the worst film ever made.
So it's
so bad it's good. What's up?
So it's Reptilicus.
100%.
Okay.
I think that's the appeal of it. Is like it's so bad, but like it's really like they're really trying.
So Gary is saying if I wanted to share a ridiculous one, yet still with merits, it'd be City Monster. So now I've got to look up City Monster.
See, I am so into like all of these. Oh, that looks great. I kind of love it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, now I kind of want to check that out. Oh my goodness.
Oh man.
All right. I am loving the conversation of bad stuff. We are at an hour, so I gotta bail for like 20 seconds or something.
Okay.
Although
I'm gonna stop and go to bed.
Good.
You're welcome to keep this stream going since we've got people here, or if you want to pick it up on yours, or if you just want to call it.
Nah, I think it's a good time to call it because I got to work early too. So,
okay.
All right. Thanks to everybody in the chats. You guys are
thanks
awesome.
for showing up, everybody. Go to CoreyKerr.com, JoshuaKimball.com for all that fun stuff. And if you haven't yet, go check out the Indie Review Show YouTube and learn from Kayla's mistake and click on the bell because YouTube refuses to tell people that it's happening. It's like they're not doing it. So. Good night, Idaho Star, Samurai Ox, Gary, Kayla. Who else is with us? Oh, no, there was somebody else.
James.
Yeah, James. I knew I was missing James. You guys rock, and we will catch you guys another time. And some of you I'll see you tomorrow in class.